We're a little busy, as I'm sure you understand. Janus was once more surprised by the neutral and courteous professionalism. Aside from Vasquez, the power balance usually meant that Domsec demanded courtesy, not the other way around. I'm just here to check on my uncle. We'll get to that, the lieutenant said with no apologies. First, I'd like you to walk me through the events of the past 2 days, starting with the confrontation at the airlock. We have footage and comm transcripts, but I'd like to hear it from your perspective. Janus swallowed. Can I ask what this is about? Just a formality, the lieutenant said, tapping something into her hand terminal. We're recording. Where? Start when ready. Janus did as he was asked. He started when Ryler called him over to Mr. Time His Money, cussing him out. You punched his shoulder in the video. What was your intention there? Just to let him know I was stepping in. I didn't want him turning toward my suit if he was holding something sharp. Did you think he was holding something sharp? I don't know, Janus answered. It's common practice. I tapped his shoulder so I wouldn't find out the hard way. Janus continued the story, talking her through the argument in the locker room. Did you T-tap Ms. Alancourt? What? What? Why? To let her know you were stepping in, the lieutenant said with an air of understanding that felt false. It would be understandable if you did. By all accounts, she got into your face first. Don't you have footage? Not in the locker room. That area is privacy locked. No video, only sound. I didn't touch her. Did she say I did? Janus asked. Tell me what you did next, the lieutenant said, ignoring his question. They went through the rest of his day, from noticing the heat to taking Callie to the sector gate, then going to work and getting demoted. He was careful not to mention anything that might get Barry in trouble. But the lieutenant seemed uninterested in the professional aspects of his testimony. She did ask why he kept taking on other people's work. Isn't that the right thing to do? Agnes asked. We're all better off if the plant runs smoothly. In light of your recent demotion, I'd reconsider that belief, she pointed out. Ever had a faulty stun rod? Okay, I'll clean that. That's sure. Janus asked. The lieutenant frowned. Yes. Why? Why? Did you accept that your stun rod was now a baton? Or did you get it repaired? The lieutenant snorted and made a note in her terminal. It was the only time he saw her smile. They continued the interview, talking through his conversation with Barry, his trip home, and going to Tartarus with his uncle. So, you were hot, angry, drunk. And Miss Alancourt all but admitted she'd gotten you fired out of spite, or at least outright xenophobia. Did you ask your uncle to hit her? What? What? No. Janus said, gripping his armrests. But you wanted to hit her, didn't you? The lieutenant pressed on. Wanting to hit someone isn't a crime, Mr. Invarian. And to be frank, Ms. Alancourt had it coming. Don't you agree? No. Why? The lieutenant asked skeptically. Were you afraid of the crowd? I'm an outsider, ma'am, Janus said. I can't afford to get into a fight. I can't afford to resent people. I don't have the money, and I don't have the time. Why did you argue with Alancourt in the first place, then? because she wanted to put other people at risk. Janus said, tired and irritated. What does a 2-minute wait matter if we're all dead? 2-minute waits add up. Then they should fix the airlock. Janus practically shouted. The lieutenant took a note on her terminal. Would you say you're afraid of dying, Mr. Invarian? Am I? Of course, I am. Isn't everybody? You do a dangerous job. I know plenty of people who never leave the dome, myself included. Why do you work as a duster if you're afraid of the void? Janus blinked. He felt like he was pushing an equipment cart uphill. The two of them had been digging into every aspect of the past day for over an hour. And he realized the lieutenant had a point. He'd never tried for a safe job. Early shift exterior maintenance was perpetually understaffed because it combined specialized skills and dangerous work. He would never get bumped from that work the way he had from quality assurance. I just don't think of it that way, he told her. I do what I have to, so my family can eat. She took another note, scrolled back through the document, and made a few annotations, then stood to leave. Can I see my uncle now? Janus said, standing with her. I don't tower. There are more people who want to speak to you first, she said again, without apology, as if he was at the disposal of DomeSec, and not a citizen visiting his jailed uncle. Can I get you some water? But the lieutenant raised an eyebrow at him, conveying in the simple gesture the futility of whatever complaint he was about to utter. Water would be great, he said, sitting back down. Over the next 2 hours, Janus spoke to representatives from recycling, sector maintenance, DomeSec customs, and 2 sociologists from Dome admin. The sector maintenance rep grilled him on the manual override he'd performed on the airlock. It sounds like you don't trust people, the engineer said. I shouldn't have to trust people. I should trust in the process. The process is to run the software override. Janus shrugged. I don't know anything about programming. I know a lot about hydraulics. So, you don't trust things you don't understand. No, I see. Ever think of broadening your horizons a bit? The code is on the Dome noosphere. Janus frowned. I'm just a mechanic, and I already work 2 shifts. What's studying airlock code going to do for me when I can just fix the real problem? Because not everyone's a mechanic. How is your solution going to fix the airlocks you don't go through every morning? Janus didn't have a good answer for that, other than sector maintenance doing a better job of keeping the airlocks functional. As for the 2 sociologists, they were fascinated by what they called an uncatalogued sub-identity within the Dome's cultural strata. They were particularly interested in Janus's characterization of the void. What's so strange about it? Janus finally asked. It's all around us, every day, formless and empty. And at any moment it could kill us. Are we supposed to think of it as beautiful, or the struggle that makes us strong? The 2 sociologists looked at each other and laughed. I think you'll find, Mr. Invarian, that most people try not to think about what's outside the dome at all. After 3 straight hours of questioning, Janus was at the end of his tow cable. He was tired, uncomfortable from the seemingly unrelated questions, and completely unsure of whether he was being interviewed, studied, or set up to take the fall for the riots. He asked to take a leak, and the lieutenant from the first hour and a half appeared, escorting him to the restroom. "How much longer is this going to take?" he asked her from the interview room away. "I need to go pick my sister up at the sector gate." "There's one more person who wants to speak to you," she said. "Your sister's being watched. She'll be safe until a decision is taken." "Taken by whom?" Janus asked. The lieutenant shook her head. "Go wait in the interview room, Mr. Invarian. This will all be over soon." "That's what I'm afraid of," Janus thought. Janus stepped back into the room, and the door slid shut in front of him. It had been nearly 4 hours since he stepped into the detention center to visit his uncle, mostly at Callie's instigation, although Meg had also told him to make sure he stopped by. Had she known? Had Barry? Was that why they'd given him the day off? And if so, why hadn't they just told him? The door opened, revealing his final interviewer, and Janus recoiled instinctively. It was all he could do to stop himself from baring his teeth. Janus backed further into the room as the Wayfinder priest walked in, like a bogeyman from his uncle's conspiracy theories. He wore artfully folded light gray robes that shifted with strange geometry. His gait was so smooth he seemed to be gliding. His head was cowled, his face hidden by a silver mask. "I see you've inherited Ivan's distrust of the survivor. Only of his priests." The cleric dipped his head in acknowledgement and gestured to the empty chair. "Won't you sit?" "This won't take long. I'd rather stand." "Yes," the cultist said, moving seamlessly to the opposite chair and sitting gracefully. "Unthinking defiance makes you predictable, don't you think?" Janus stared at the empty orbits of the silver mask. The face was simple, with strong, clean lines instead of details. The cultist waited patiently. Janus sat down. "Good compromise is the beginning of all relationships." "Hard to have a relationship with a mask," Janus answered. The cultist reached up without hesitation, and with a practiced motion removed his hood and the mask, setting it face up on the table before him. "It's also good to come to a first conversation with something you don't mind giving up." His hair was short and white, his face tanned and lined, and his eyes were as black as the void. "My name is Nikandros. Do you know why I'm here?" "You're a wayfinder," Janus said, crossing his arms. "I'm an architect." "But that's just a title, young man," the cultist said. "A rank in the cult of the survivor." The word cult means worship, which itself stems from an ancient word that means cultivation. "We tend to the survivor's flock. Do you like knowledge, or do you prefer certainty?" Janus wasn't sure how to respond to that. Until now, he'd thought the two things were the same, but clearly they were either different or the cultist thought they were. The cultist sighed and started getting up. "Wait," Janus said. The cultist stopped. "I prefer knowledge over certainty," Janus said. The cultist smoothed his robes and sat back down. "Good. There's value in understanding the difference, even if the question has no right answer." "There is always a right answer," Janus said. "There is at least one right answer at any given point in time," the cultist corrected. "The right answer now may not be the right answer later." "Has anyone ever called you obstinate?" Only the people who've met me, and some that haven't, Janus answered. How is that working out for you? Not great, Janus admitted. Can an answer be right and wrong at the same time? No, but your goals may be beyond your power to achieve, the cultist said, standing up. How many first-generation immigrants do you think live in Prime Dome? I don't know, Janus said. Maybe 10,000? It's closer to 25,000, the cultist said. Prime Dome has more outsiders than any other settlement on the planet. They encourage settlers and refugees to come here. Not incidentally, they also marginalize these outsiders and emphasize the negative aspects of the places they come from. Why? You say that like it's a thought-out decision, not just people being assholes. I do, and it is. It's been carefully built into this dome's administrative policies for generations. Outsiders become primers under extraordinary pressure and then perpetuate the system on the next wave of migrants. The notion made Janus's skin crawl. He could accept that living in Prime Dome was a privilege compared to having to survive in one of the smaller settlements or out in the dust like the hunter caravans did. He could accept that taking him in was a strain on the dome's resources, something he and his family had to earn every day. That dome administration not only took in refugees, but sought them out, and then deliberately made their lives hell was too bitter a pill to swallow. Why would they do that? You accept that it's true? The cultist asked, curious. I'm not going to reject it. I don't know enough about other settlements to tell if things are worse for outsiders here than they are there, or what dumb admin hopes to achieve by doing it. What if I told you it was the reason Prime Dome grows faster, has fewer safety failures, and has a more cohesive society than any other settlement on Irkalla? How can you know that? Simple regression. Yeah. The cult has access to a lot of data. Then I'd ask, if it was right then, is it still right now? And might there not be another right answer that would achieve the same or better results without making my life miserable? Nicandros, the architect, grinned. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, I can see why young Abraxas won't shut up about you. He retrieved his mask and pushed it over his face with a click, pulled the cowl back over his head, and stood. Be well, Janus Invarian. I hope you survive. Am I in danger? Janus asked, alarmed. We are all in danger, Janus. Look around. Look around. The void takes, does it not? The cultist dipped his head in farewell and walked out, leaving Janus exhausted by the interviews and troubled by what he'd learned. The door remained open. After a few moments of silence, Janus stood up and walked to the door. The holographic arrow was back, pointing the way out, and he followed it to the desk sergeant. She had him scan in again, and she assigned a Dome Sec officer to escort him to the holding cells where his uncle was waiting. Yay, Janus said, sitting down across from his uncle. You, us. Hey, yourself? Uncle Even responded from the other side of the glass. Aren't you supposed to be at work? Got the day off. Good thing, too. Spent the last 4 hours getting interrogated. His uncle didn't seem to be surprised by that, but he didn't comment either. He had a nice bruise developing on his left cheek. How they treating you? Janus asked, unconsciously reaching a hand to his own cheek. Ah, nothing I can't handle, his uncle responded. How's Callie? Janus scowled. Really? That's how you're going to play it? What? I don't know. Why the void are you so grouchy? His uncle said. You got drunk and punched the aspirant second. Janus shouted. Settle down. The domesec guard barked. You got drunk and punched the aspirant second. Janus said again, in a low hiss. There were fights in the street last night. Dome admin is cracking down. Good. Their precious system is broken. Janus didn't know where his uncle got off, acting like everything was going according to his plan. If you've got everything covered, how did someone hang a mouse on your cheek? This? Or? Uncle Ivan asked, pointing at his face. 2 drunk primers in the holding tank held me, while the third one punched. I'm in solitary now. I'm fine. If you get exiled, Callie and I won't make it. Uncle Ivan's face softened. I'm not getting exiled, Janus. But even if I was, you're a good man. You'd find a way to take care of your sister. He leaned toward the window. You need to harden up, son. This isn't the only upset the world and the void are going to throw at you. You'll survive. As long as you remember what I taught you, and you don't give up, you will always find a way. Having to listen to his uncle tell him to calm down and give him advice from the wrong side of a visiting booth was too much. He'd done what Callie had asked him to do. He'd tried. He'd gotten raked over the coals for it. And he still wasn't done processing what Nicandros had told him. If that was even true, and he'd still tried to help his uncle to listen. But nothing the old drunk said made sense. You know what? Forget you, Ivan. If you can take care of yourself so well, then do it. What's the drama? I'm handling this. Great. Call me when that's done.